When you study Irish history, you do get to see how things of the past echo in the present. It's not to say that things that happened in the past are exactly happening right now. They kind of rhyme, in essence. And I've covered this before in the plantations video. So if you haven't seen them, I will put them up in the description and also at the end of this video as well. Make sure you check them out. The last video I've done, Charles Stewart Parnell, which I'll leave at the end as well, this really got me thinking because there was a term used in it, and I have heard it before. The term is the Irish question. And this was basically to do with how the British government was viewing Ireland essentially after the Act of Union in the 19th century. When Ireland became kind of completely subsumed by the British Empire, the Irish question started arising. How to respond to Irish nationalism, how to respond for people wanting Irish independence, this kind of stuff. And this made me think, this does feel a little bit at the moment is like the Irish question is kind of being echoed even through our own government, maybe even in the EU. You do get the sense that the EU, the most powerful nations in the EU, when they're in Brussels, they be kind of thinking to themselves, what about this? What about Ireland? Like, what's the story with them? This island at the edge of Europe. It happened with the Lisbon Treaty. It happens every now and again when you hear that they're threatening us with certain things. This call for the demonization of people that are feeling more patriotic, that the rise of nationalism today, even though the rise of nationalism in the past essentially was against a foreign ruler. So for people to completely 100% deny the fact that there is some sort of semblance of that happening now, feelings from regular people that don't even like calling themselves nationalists, but they would feel like they are getting more and more into the fact that Ireland should be governing itself. Ireland should be ruling its own roost. Ireland should have more power in its own decisions, meaning the power of the people and not being ignored. So basically, the Irish government at the moment is not even listening to the Irish people. So the Irish government is acting on behalf of other authorities, which is probably the EU, which is probably the NGOs, which is probably these other authority figures that are seemingly puppeteering the Irish government. This is what people are starting to see. And this is like a semblance of what happened in the past, because the British Empire was ruling Ireland from Britain. So we had our Irish politicians going over there, for the likes of Charles Stewart Parnell, Daniel O'Connell. These people would have been going over there and actually acting on the behalf of Irish people, of acting on the behalf of Ireland. What we don't have these days, we may have some, but we don't have many, is actual Irish politicians that have the actual real issues of Ireland at its heart. It doesn't care. The people don't care about Ireland at its heart. There are many examples of the reasons why I can say that so confidently. Micheál Martin essentially has said sovereignty is a backward idea. There's actually a video that I've done just recently about national identity, which I'll cover a little bit in this video, but I want to kind of keep the focus here. The notion from the British elite was, this Irish question, but it was never really a question. It was a problem to be managed. How do you control a people with their own language, their own traditions, their own stubborn sense of identity? Back then, the empire used armies, landlords, and laws to keep Ireland in its place. But today, I want to ask, is the Irish question back again, and only in different form? For instance, there's one example of this that relates back to the past, was the problem of housing, the problem of landlords and stuff like that. This is happening again, but let's go back to the 19th century. Irish people were driven from their homes by landlords who didn't care for them, only for profit. So if you fast forward to today, the same thing is happening, but through banks, investment funds, and vulture capitalists. Entire blocks of apartments are bought up before families even get a look in. Ordinary people, young couples, students are locked out of the market. It echoes the days when Irish land was controlled by absentee landlords. The names have changed, but the story feels very much the same. This will tie into the next one as well, multinational corporations, because there's a lot of this happening as well, where the housing market has completely inflated because of this foreign investment, where that you're being, in terms of rent and stuff like that, that these people that are coming over to work for these multinational corporations can pay higher rents. So they're pricing people out of the markets. So that brings us on to the multinational corporations. Something I want to say about the accommodation as well. When immigrants come into the country, whether they're working or they're coming here as a mass immigration policy due to the refugee crisis, economic immigrants, and all of this kind of stuff, this has affected the housing market in a very, very profound way as well. This is why people are feeling utterly embarrassed and sad and angry, because they can't get on to the housing list. They are, or at least they're being pushed down the housing list. Irish natives, their housing market has gone to fucking shit. So people have to leave the country to make money so they can buy houses in Ireland. This whole thing has turned into an echo of the past. Ireland has become a base camp for multinational corporations. They promise jobs, and yes, many of us work in their offices and factories. But when you look closer, who really wins? Profits don't stay in Ireland. They flow back to Silicon Valley, Wall Street, to headquarters far from here, also to Britain as well, and to European markets, of course, to places that aren't Irish. Our government bends over backwards for them with tax breaks, while small Irish businesses, the backbone of real community life, struggle to survive. It's a new kind of dependency, not on London, but on global boardrooms that care as little for us as the old landlords once did. So this again is echoes this Irish question. So it's like you could imagine these multinational corporations here dealing with the Irish government as well. There's obviously stuff going on behind the scenes where this is all backroom, boardroom decisions being made here. It really is cloak and dagger, and it doesn't facilitate a healthy nation. It doesn't facilitate a true nation. It facilitates the few, and this is the same old story, just different guises. As I touched on already, mass immigration. Let me be clear. Ireland has been the land of 1,000 welcomes. But today we're experiencing something entirely new. Levels of migration never before seen in our history. For many Irish people, this feels like another echo of the past, when waves of outsiders arrive and reshape the land without the consent of those who've lived here. It's not a Viking invasion or a Norman conquest or a British conquest. Of course, you can't say it's exactly the same as that, but for some people it looks like that, because all of a sudden the landscape of the country has changed overnight. Dublin City has changed overnight. It's not about where people are from. It just means that our places are being changed dramatically. And if anybody wants to deny that, then they're not living in reality. And then if people want to shame and silence people and accuse people immediately of just pointing this out, you're working on the behalf of propagandists. You're not working on the behalf of the betterment of Irish people. So the effects are similar, sudden, dramatic, leaving ordinary Irish people asking who decides the future of this island. Is it Brussels? Is it NGOs? Or is it us Irish people? So who's going to decide? Because we're certainly not deciding anything. So this again is the Irish question. When we talk about home rule from the past, home rule was all about governing ourselves in our own country, separate to Britain. Are we being governed by a foreign authority? It seems like democracy is dead. It seems like there is no democracy at the moment, because if there was, we would be getting a voice on a lot more different things, and we would be deciding upon a lot of different things. But we're not deciding on anything. And then, of course, you have a lot of people that are in the system that are just the Irish people that are just, I don't know what kind of a thought processes they're going on with them. They seem to be locked into this cycle of nonsense with the Irish government. And they seem to feel like what the Irish news is saying to them is somehow truthful about other people that are in Ireland that are basically trying to call this out. They are giving out about the government, wondering what the hell is going on with the government, and then blaming other Irish people for calling this out and calling out what's going on in our country. There's a cycle of real weird stuff going on with Irish people at the moment. They really need to take a good, long, hard look at themselves, because there are many, many people voting for these people. Like, they should not be voting for these career politicians. They should be voting for independents and people that are coming up through the ranks. The people that are outside of this political class. I don't get like how they're so skeptical of people outside of the political class. You know, it's career politicians that are destroying us. And of course, I covered this in the last video, identity is under attack. Throughout our history, the greatest weapon used against us was not the sword, but the slow erosion of identity. The language was suppressed. The Church of England tried to replace our own Catholic Church. And also as well, earlier on from that, it was the Norman conquest that took, kind of almost eradicated the Celtic Catholic Church that was very synonymous to Ireland. The press painted us as inferior, and today you can see the same tactics. Media pundits, academics, and our own politicians dismiss Irish concerns as backward and bigoted. The same with some Irish people. They seem to kind of talk about this as well, even though they're giving out about the government, when these media wings are a part of the government agenda. So you can't have it both ways. You can't give out about the government and then take on the voice of the Irish Times or the RTE and all that. It's one or the other. You can't be talking the same talking points as the propaganda wings and then giving out about the government. It's as if being proud to be Irish is something to be ashamed of. Of course, this was the Irish question, the rise of Irish nationalism back in the day. This was before the pre-revolution. This was the Irish question. This seems to be like the same thing over and over again. How to make the Irish forget who they are so they can be ruled without resistance. So it was like try to beat the Irishness out of Ireland. That was done in the past to try to conquer us. And this seems like it's happening again. People think that learning a cúpla focal is what it means to be Irish. Yes, it's a part of the story, 100%, but it's not the full story. So here's the thing. The Irish never gave up. We survived colonization, famine, exile, and war, and we're still here. The challenge now is not to despair, but to act. We need housing policies that protect ordinary people, not investors. We need a balance between welcoming global business and protecting our own communities. We need honest conversations about immigration identity, not shame or silence. Above all, we need to stand firm in who we are. Change needs to happen. I believe it needs to happen by striking out this Irish government and bringing in something completely new. By striking out the Irish media and bringing in something completely new. It's about getting away from automatically assuming something independent and different is the enemy, because you're falling into the trap of the government and the legacy media. They're not the friend of the ordinary Irish person. So we are the guardians of Ireland. Let us reframe the Irish question. It is not how to manage the Irish. It is how will the Irish people defend their land, their voice, their identity in the 21st century. We as Irish people are guardians of Ireland now. And if our ancestors could endure centuries of hardship, surely we can face this struggle together. If you're interested in supporting Bertie films, I'd ask you to leave a donation. There are many ways you can do that in the description. There's PayPal, there's Buy Me a Coffee, there's Stripe. And also, if you want to buy my book, The Forgotten Prince, this all helps Bertie films. As well, make sure you share this video with someone you think might like it. Leave a comment below. And also, I really appreciate you watching all the way through. Make sure you check out the other videos that I've linked here as well. This also helps my channel. Thank you so much. Go to Mila Mag with Galer Macorja. Be me the kind, slán go fóill.